Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with a quick little video just to discuss the Nuts and Bolts update for Total War Warhammer 2. Now this is a little beta patch, it's nothing too crazy, but we are getting quite a few bug fixes in here that will hopefully fix, especially the campaign issues that the game's been having ever since the Warden and the Ponch released. And there's been quite a few significant ones, so hopefully we will see some fixes there. And besides that, we are seeing some campaign balance changes and multiplayer balance changes. So some of this stuff looks pretty good. Actually, I think most of it looks pretty good, but we're going to go right through it, hopefully pretty quickly, and see what's up. So first and foremost, well, here's how you can get it. I will be putting the link down in the description below, so if you just want to know how to get the beta and don't know, then it is listed there on the page. Now, for campaign balance changes, tech for orcs was reworked a bit. One of the big complaints a lot of people had was that a lot of the tech boosts goblins a lot more than it does orcs. Orcs didn't really get a lot of buffs. You did get some buffs on orcs for sure, but not as much as goblins were getting. So it's been reworked a bit. Heavier clubs now grants +8 melee attack to orc infantry rather than just savage orcs, which is a nice little benefit. Before, every orc variant essentially had its own subset of tech, and that meant that ultimately you didn't get that many benefits. You get like one or two little perks, maybe like a weapon strength perk from something like Gobbo Crackdown, but you just didn't get that much of a benefit to all of your orc units. So this is a nice little improvement there. +8 melee attack is going to be nice. Orcs tend to have pretty bad melee stats overall, especially compared to honestly compared to most factions. So this should hopefully help offset that. If you can get +8 melee attack on your orc infantry, that's like a 33% or so boost to your melee attack. It's really nice. Heavy metal lost the +3 melee attack boost. Obviously, that's now been wrapped up into heavier clubs, but it does now grant 10 more armor for orc infantry. This should stack nicely with some of the other improvements like padded shield, letting you get some well-armored orcish infantry. The weapon strength bonus was also reduced from 10 to 5%. I don't think that's the biggest issue ever, but it's going to be a little sad just to see a little bit of that weapon strength go away, but honestly, it's like 2 or 3 points lost on most of your orc infantry, so not a huge loss there. Better arrowheads now affects all missile units, which is nice. Before, it only affected goblins. Once again, one of those techs that only affected goblins, which is limiting. Boar painting now gives extra speed for orc boars, which is really, really nice in my opinion. Boars are kind of a slow cav, and to be fair, in campaign, their biggest issue really comes down to their tiering. So I'm not sure, and as a result, you usually don't want boar units at all as greenskins, because you unlock them at tier 3 and 4, but except for savage orc boar boys who are big guns who are tier 3, which makes them kind of okay. But yeah, the biggest problem there is tiering, but at least it does make orc boars a little more mobile, helps them sustain a little better into late game, in my opinion. Gobbo Crackdown also gets 10% more speed for all infantry now, which is really nice. Gonna make your orc boys able to close the gap a little faster. It's gonna make savage orcs really nasty, I think. Savage orcs have a base speed of 37, so this should bump them up to, I'm not sure how exactly the rounding is going to work, but 40 to 41 speed. That's going to make them very capable of catching all skirmishers quickly. At the moment, a unit like elf archers, for example, high elf archers or wood elf archers, can kind of kite a unit of savage orcs. Once this hits, they're not going to be able to do so. Your savage orcs will overrun them with ease, in my opinion. This is going to be quite a buff, and it's going to help normal orc boys kind of overrun normal skirmishers like, say, Empire crossbows or Bretonnian peasant bows and that sort of thing. So I like that. Scrap upgrades. Padded shield has been reworked a little bit. They reduced the missile block chance from 40 to 30. That means you're now going to get a 65% shield block instead of 75%. No more gold shields on your orc boys. Tragic. But you do also get 15 more armor, which is going to make them a lot better against cleaving out trash. And you combine that with the heavy metal upgrade, and you got orc boys that are sitting at a hefty 55 armor. That's not bad. It's not the most amazing thing ever for sure, but it is a respectable upgrade. Now there aren't any other changes made to scrap upgrades or tech. I don't mind no other changes to tech. I think these tech changes are good, but I really wish they had reworked some of the scrap changes. In my opinion, some of the scrap upgrades are absolute trash. For example, right now the savage orc upgrades are, in my opinion, just garbage tier. You get a bonus versus large, which is all right. That's an okay one, but otherwise you get extra leadership and extra missile resist. which honestly isn't that valuable compared to, especially when you compare it to goblin upgrades and orc upgrades. Orcs they get extra armor, they get 25% more weapon strength, unique techs from, for example, Azag, or unique scrap upgrades from, say, Azag can get you extra AP damage, which, while it's not the strongest upgrade ever, it is at least a decent upgrade there. And similarly for Black Orcs, at least the unique tech that Grimgor gets them, the Immortals armor, is honestly absolute trash. It gets you more leadership, which is irrelevant on Black Orcs, and it gets you fear, which you probably have from some sort of monster or lord in your army anyway. You don't need fear on your line of Black Orcs. It's much better to get that extra 10 weapon strength and melee attack from versus larger infantry. So really, what I would like to see is much more scrap reworking, because some of the scrap upgrades right now are just trash. The ones that immediately come to mind for me are Savage Orc upgrades and Black Orc, or specifically Grimgor's unique armor for Black Orcs. But I'm sure there's others people could think of that are just lackluster, and I think CA should go back and check some of these scrap upgrades out and rework them. And honestly, some of them were stronger upgrades in the pre-release version of the game. For example, Grimgor's Immortals armor actually granted an armor improvement to Black Orcs, which, sure, it's probably not the best thing ever, because your Black Orcs are already very beefy, but at least there's more of an argument to be made there that, okay, at least I can have super tanky Black Orcs. Maybe I'm going to go fight an army that doesn't have a lot of AP. Cool. Now my Black Orcs are actually beefcakes. Instead of now, your Black Orcs don't rout as easily, which they don't already. Your Black Orcs are basically never going to rout in campaign, unless you've screwed up horribly, and you're probably getting smoked at that point anyway. Same thing with Savage Orcs. Originally, the Idol of Orc for Warsag took away some physical resist, which was a downside, but in exchange you got much greater offensive stats. So it was a give and take situation, and it was a really cool option in my opinion. And the change to missile resist is just kind of dumb in my opinion. Usually AI missiles are not super threatening. You can kind of swarm them, overwhelm them, disrupt them, that sort of thing. Now, besides that, reductions in recruiting times for a few Greenskin units, as well as the Norscan Giant, I should say. So the Norscan and Greenskin Giant now recruit in 2 turns. I don't see this making much of a difference. The units overlap with much better monsters like the Ragnarok Spider, the Mammoths, of course, the Rogue Idol, that sort of thing. And a Giant just isn't appealing in light of that. So sure, 2 turns is nice and all, but honestly, you're probably never going to recruit these guys anyway. At least not in campaign. They're not a bad unit in multi, but this isn't multi. And then Big Guns, Savage Orc Big Guns, and Boar Boys have had their recruit time. I don't know if this means just Boar Boys or all Boar Boys, including the Big Guns, have had their recruitment time reduced from 2 to 1 turn. I think that is a very good change. Definitely, maybe not needed, but it does give you some incentive to swap over to Big Guns and Savage Orc Big Guns, where normally you'd kind of weigh the pros and cons, and you often think, okay, I'm going to waste 2 turns recruiting these guys, when I could really be just rampaging around with an almost as good army of Orc Boys. And it makes an even bigger difference if you're global recruiting. If you're farther afield and you're global recruiting your orcs, being able to recruit in 2 turns instead of 4 is a huge difference. So it saves you a lot of time. So I could definitely see that. I think this is a very good improvement there. Several bug fixes. Gambling for Winds of Magic should be fixed now. I don't see anything about... So right now, there is a bug where you're playing co-op where WoW will not work, and I don't see any fix related to that. But Marauder Chieftains, for example, got their skill trees. There's been some quality of life changes. High Elves, Fire Mages on Sun Dragons got added to hero unit caps. Lords that got captured with Vorden's Cage will now actually get you their traits from defeating them. Some small renames to Karakon Core, that sort of thing. But by and large, I think these are some good bug fixes. I think there's still a few that are left over and will need fixing, and hopefully soon. Though I think most likely, especially with the current sort of COVID situation, CA most likely working from home in large part, it's probably going to be difficult for them to catch all the bugs and really get on top of it and synchronize that. But I'm definitely hoping to see proper bug fixing in the near future, or more in-depth bug fixing in the near future, even if it might take a little bit longer. Now, for unit balance, and this is what really interests me, is some multiplayer stuff. Dark Elves, the Scourge Runners have gotten another hit. They lost some HP, 90 HP overall. I'm not sure if this is on Ultra or Large. I do believe This is on large. So now you're going to have a 3,500 HP chariot instead of a 3,800 almost HP chariot. It's a slight nerf. Honestly, Scourge Runners are still going to be really annoying. The biggest problem, and I'm going to keep saying this until it probably never gets fixed. It's not going to get... CA is probably not going to backtrack on it. But honestly, the biggest problem with Scourge Runners is the fact that CA decided all light chariots need more armor, and they gave every light chariot, or all the sort of decent light chariots, so the Skeleton, the Tyrannok, and the Dark Elf Scourge Runners, they decided all of them deserve 80 armor instead of 50. And this makes a lot of the traditional counters to skirmishers, or skirmish chariots, especially non-AP archers, non-AP skirmish cav, light cavalry, dogs, that sort of thing. It completely invalidates them, makes them practically worthless, even if they can get their hands on these units. And just makes it very difficult to shut them down. A lot of factions basically don't have a snowball's chance in hell of ever really countering the Scourge Runners in a fight, in a sort of combat sense. The best you can do is basically zone them out and suffer through it. Bring enough HP to where the damage they do doesn't matter. On a unit like a Tyrannok chariot or Skeleton chariots, it doesn't matter as much because these guys don't have AP, they don't have piercing shots, so the damage doesn't rack up as much. On a unit like the Ravagers of Rakarth, the Scourge Runner chariots, who have piercing shots and do AP damage, it is just straight up oppressive. It's really annoying, honestly. I think it was just a massive mistake by CA way back when they made this change. And although I doubt that they're going to change it, I don't think these sorts of nerfs are really going to fix anything. Going on to Greenskins, we've got the Orc Shaman with a War Boar. He's now had his damage output increased by 50 when he's on his boar. Before, he got AP damage, but his weapon strength dropped to, I believe, 260 on the boar, which is just terrible. So now he'll be at 260, 80, and 180. I could literally add those up, but I'm not doing so. But now he's going to have 310 weapon strength on a boar, majority AP, which is going to be nice to see. The Black Orc Big Boss has also gotten a rework to be AP when he is on his boar. He lost some actually a lot of non-AP damage, 135 damage there, but he has gained another 85 weapon strength. So that's nice. I'm kind of happy about that. It's going to make him better when you need to deal with enemy cavalry, with big sort of tanky cavalry, especially like Empire or Bretonia. Definitely not unhappy about it. And his weapon strength will thus remain the same. So it is going to make him a little worse against factions like Beastmen, for example, where the AP wasn't really an important component. But I still do like this change. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think it makes sense. Boars are usually AP. Or actually are all AP. The Goblin Great Shaman on the Spider was reworked so that he matches normal Arachnaroks in stats. Armor dropped from 150 to 120. HP increased. Melee attack was changed from 54 to 58. Reload skill was increased, which I don't think matters too much. But main thing is that it's now standardized with normal Arachnaroks. Makes sense. Was to be expected. And then the 3 variants of Pump Wagons all lost the poison contact effect from their thrown mushrooms. That's not entirely surprising. To be fair, I don't think it's a huge issue. Greenskin's roster is just so loaded with poison damage that it just doesn't matter. But you know, it's something. And then the cost for normal Snotling Pump Wagons was increased to 500. I think that's probably where it's going to stay. Snotling Pump Wagons were in an alright spot before, and although this nerf might be a little justified, I can't see them going up much more in cost. Ulthar's Raiders, and all in all, I'm a little surprised we're not seeing some nerfs to, for example, Stone Trolls. I did kind of anticipate some nerfs and maybe some buffs, honestly, to Swamp Trolls. So I'm a little surprised we're not seeing some changes there. But by and large, I think all these changes make sense. Dwarves, Ulthar's Raiders, extra ammo. This is going to bring them in line with other ranges with great weapons. As I've said before, I'm not thrilled with the direction CA is taken with great weapon or with throwing axe units. I really think they should be a melee unit with bursty ranged attack. CA seems hell-bent on making them a true ranged unit. It just isn't really working out. I don't think it's going to work out, but whatever. This brings Ulthar's Raiders in line with other ranges with great weapons. Silver and Guard got a big nerf, and this was something that a lot of people were asking for, and it's something that was necessary, really. The unit was a bit overtuned. Lost some AP damage, gained some non-AP damage to compensate. Its cost also went up by 50. Personally, I was hoping for the model count to drop to 75 with some adjustments to HP perhaps if as needed, to make them more in line with other mid-tier and elite high elf troops. It seems that CA wants to keep them as a 90 model unit. Not a huge fan of that, but you know, I think these nerfs are all right and will hopefully make the unit a little more manageable. It's not that grossly of an OP unit. And then Eltharion the Grim is dropping in price from 2150 on Storewing to 2050. I still think he's a little overpriced, honestly. I still think they could shave off another 100, maybe even 200 gold on that. Probably not 200, but another 100 gold could be shaved off here. But this is bringing Eltharion closer to a solid tier. Rapans finally got standardized to have the same ability as normal Bretonnian warhorses, so that's good. Finally. This needed to happen ages ago. The fact that it took this long is kind of silly. And then some abilities were reworked. Sorry. Lord of Dragons is now lasts less of a duration and also has half the range. This makes a bit of a difference. It does mean that Imrik needs to be close to target. Now he usually is because he's either on a horse or on a dragon, but it makes it so you can't just cast the buff across the map on an engagement on the other side of your army. So it means you have to be a little more tactical with your placement. Plus the duration isn't as long, so you can't exploit that massive debuff as well. Fermented Fungi took a massive nerf to duration. This was very much necessary. The ability was just horribly OP. Dropping melee defense and giving Imbuing Rampage for 36 seconds was just insane. It made matchups that were already very bad, like for example the Bretonnian matchup against the Greenskins, even worse. It really made a lot of those matchups difficult. Greenskins are a faction that has snares coming out their rear end, and so this extra snare was just a huge issue. So I'm glad to see it toned down and brought down to a more reasonable level. Same thing with your next. Same thing with They Need Stabbin'. I do think that the nerfs to range should force players to sort of think a little bit about their lord positioning or character positioning. To be fair, I'd like to see some of these abilities reworked more, and I think They Need Stabbin' is probably still going to be a little overtuned. But, you know, for now, it's a decent change. And finally, Spinning Loons was reworked to have shorter range and now has a cast condition. A unit can't cast Spinning Loons if it is below 25% health. I don't really think Spinning Loons on... and I believe this was on normal Night Goblin Fanatics. It's just not... I'm actually not a huge fan of this this change here, because I think it ignores the biggest issue with Loons right now, and that's that AP Cloonies are insanely OP, because they are guaranteed to get their full value. If this effect had been applied to the AP Loonies, and maybe it has been, I haven't gotten an opportunity to download the beta yet, so maybe it has been implemented there, but if it has not been, it's basically ignoring the biggest issue with Lunatics, which is the fact that the AP Loonies can almost guarantee all 3 casts in a game, unless the game is over within, 2 minutes or whatever, before they can recharge all 3 casts of Loonies. Normal Loonies don't have that issue. The unit breaks when it's glared at, so it's not really an issue if they can't cast the unit or the ability under 25% health. So I feel like this is kind of a silly nerf. I don't really feel that either of these nerfs is really fixing the issue, but oh well. I'm pretty happy with all of these nerfs there. I do think most of these changes make sense. They're all reasonable. I don't think some of them are in the right direction necessarily, or that I don't necessarily think they're going to fix the issue, but I do like the direction of most of these changes. I think they're perfectly reasonable. And for campaign, I'm really excited to see all these tech and item or scrap upgrade changes. It's good stuff. I'm happy that orcs will now have more upgrades to make them more viable rather than this very goblin-centric tech tree we had before. So very exciting stuff to see. Definitely glad to see it. Excited to test it out more in actual gameplay. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you think these changes are pretty good overall? Do you think they're ridiculous? Do you think they're bad? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.